For the latest Stephen King's It news updates, visit hybridnetworkyt.com. What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Hybrid Network, and we've got a lot to talk about today as we've got our second trailer for the upcoming Stephen King adaptation, It. There's a whole bunch to go over in this new trailer, so without further ado, let's dive in. So, first things first, the trailer starts us off a lot like the little teaser we got at the MTV Choice Awards with what I assume is Stan's bar mitzvah speech about childhood and how dangerous it truly is. This kind of speaks to the whole theme surrounding the book itself, about the trials we go through in our childhood and the realization that comes with growing up and realizing the idyllic vision we have just isn't true. There's a few shots that we've seen in previous trailers, but the one that catches my eye is when Ben is accosted by Henry and his gang. This plays out roughly the same as it did in the book, though audiences will note the balloon that appears in the old couple's car as they drive on by, indicating the presence of it and its control over the people of Derry. And it's also interesting to point out that this scene is straight from the Fukunaga first draft, showing me that they really aren't straying too far away from his initial vision. It's after this we finally get a little more of the titular Georgie scene, the one that's had a generation of fans terrified of storm drains, and where we get our closest look at Bill Skarsgård as the clown Pennywise. So, one thing I have to note about this scene is that it seems like this Pennywise isn't actually going to be speaking a whole lot. Now, there's no way to know if that's true, but just judging from what we see here, we don't see anything of the scene and how it plays out in either the book or the miniseries. There's no offer of a balloon, there's no carnival music or smells, there's no charismatic laughter or charm, there's just Pennywise, daring Georgie to take his boat back almost. So, more than anything, this tells me that instead of Pennywise being some sort of spiteful and darkly comical monster, he's more so a malevolent entity. Not really saying much, but his presence speaking louder than words. I'm not really sure how to feel about that in all honesty, because on one hand, that's part of what makes Pennywise so enjoyable as a villain, I think, in the book, and it really encapsulates Stephen King's writing style, but on the other hand, this probably makes the entity so much more frightening when he's barely speaking. It's hard to really say, but we see a bit more of what Pennywise is about as we go further into the story. The trailer moves along once again with a voiceover from Mike Hanlon this time, stating that his grandfather believes there's something evil lurking within Derry, Maine. Now this is interesting because in the original story it's Mike's father that knows about it and warns his son, though my theory is that since this is in the 1980s, the fire that burned down the black spots would be too far back for his father to be around for, so I'm assuming they're keeping that story, but they're making it so his grandfather is the one that witnessed those events. Anyway, as we move farther in, we get glimpses at past events within Derry, Maine, from the Ironworks factory fire to the massacre of 5 at a local bar by Claude Hero, and it all culminates in a shot of what looks like a drawing of an 18th century gathering, most likely Derry colonists, with Pennywise skulking within, showing audiences that this evil has been around for a very, very long time. The trailer moves past this and we see Bill's first encounter with the entity, something we saw from the first trailer, but we see the encounter play out far more here, with him following wet, muddy footprints down into a flooded basement, with this playing out a lot like the initial Fukunaga script as well, and it begins the echoing of that famous and ominous phrase throughout the rest of the trailer, "You'll float too." It's after this point that all of the losers start running into Pennywise, where we get a straight-on shot of Pennywise grabbing Beverly by the neck, where I can only assume this is a scene where her father starts to make advances towards her, or this is sometime after the Bloody Sink incident, but either way it's a pretty cool and pretty frightening shot. After this, there's a voiceover of Bill talking with the losers where we get another change from the book, albeit one we already kind of knew about, where Bill assumes Georgie is missing as opposed to dismembered and mangled, and we get a shot of Henry receiving a knife in the mail from Pennywise. This playing out a lot like the book and the Fukunaga script, where Henry is pushed over the edge by it, eventually going on to do all manners of horrific acts that I'm not going to get into here, but just know that he's going to have quite the disturbing down spiral. We move forward through the trailer, getting several shots of both the losers and of Pennywise, and then we have the scene of what looks like one of the losers descending down a well, most likely into the sewers of Derry, and we get another look at Pennywise behind some kind of wall, but this is the interesting part because I believe here we get the first look at the deadlights, the true form of the entity and what it used to drive the children mad when they looked directly into it, due to its eyes glowing a frightening yellow, something we never really got an indication would show up, but I'm glad it's made it into the script. We move on to see a flurry of shots, all of which hold some significant value. We see Beverly floating to the ceiling once the losers reach some sort of chamber, what I can only assume is a slightly redone version of the reflecting pool scene in Fukunaga's original script, judging by what appears to be some kind of runic marking on the wall to the left. Mike gets attacked by a multitude multitude of burnt hands, his fear of either the Black Spot's fire or the Kitchener Ironworks explosion haunting him in the sewer, Eddie running from the leper, another scene taken from the Fukunaga script as Pennywise crawls out of a refrigerator, interestingly Ben with some sort of cloth or webbing wrapped around his neck, which makes me question if the mummy is in fact in this film despite Andre Muschietti's denial, or if this is some sort of alternate adaptation of that encounter, because it seems like it takes place within the house on 29 Neibolt Street, but it's hard to get a definitive look, so we'll have to wait and see until September. We also get a shot of Stan being grabbed by Pennywise, and a look at Patrick Hochstetter's demise, using what probably amounts to a handmade flamethrower or something is blowing fire towards him. Though it's interesting to note because it looks like he's in the sewer, so one has to wonder if maybe he's attacked at the entrance to the sewer from the Kitchener Ironworks, because that's where he died in the original Fukunaga script. And finally, we get to the money scene, watching Richie make his way through the house on 29 Neibolt Street and descending into some horrible clown room for lack of a better word. We watch him make his way through, being studied by the numerous dolls, one of which turns its head, which is a frightening but nice touch, before Pennywise bursts forward and lunges at the boy, teeth sharpened and its eyes glaring. So overall, I thought this was a pretty good trailer. I think more than anything it shows how faithful they're being to the spirit of the original story while changing some things here and there to better suit the time frame. My only real thought though looking at this is that while I think this is going to be a pretty good film, I don't know how scary it's going to be. I mean, don't get me wrong, clowns creep me out a lot, but from what I've seen, there just seem to be more quick shots and jump scares than there are unsettling moments, and that could just be a bad impression on my part. Also, just to point out, there's nothing wrong with jump cuts in horror movies, but I always feel like they need to be used sparingly, and they should be used to bring audiences from a place of calmness to immediate tension, and they need to keep you there. They shouldn't be there just for a quick scare, they should be there for quick escalation, and then it should slowly build from that point, which I have to admit the movie seems like it does that a few times, but I'm hoping there's scenes like the balloon floating aimlessly in the library, and the film reel slowly revealing Pennywise's shape amidst Bill's family. But overall, what are your guys' thoughts on the new trailer? Let us know in the comments down below, and be sure you stick with us for updates and discussions on it. I also want to thank the folks at Warner Brothers for giving us the materials to go even further in depth with this new trailer, and helping us to bring you guys all kinds of new developments for the film. Anyways, make sure you guys subscribe, and this is Luke signing out.